Hello and welcome to the team selection for Game Week 11. My Game Week 10 results has ended in 78 points, which puts me in an overall rank around 80,000. It is a frustrating game week for FPL players who own Chelsea players, as we see the players like James, Sterling and Aubameyang all sitting on the bench. James did come on and played for around 80 minutes. 1-8 and get 1 point. But I have the feeling if he would have stayed on the pitch longer, he could have gotten some attacking returns from poor displays from Oof. And in terms of Man City players, it's a fantastic display from them. Cancelo scored 1, assist 1, and got a clean sheet for the Southampton game. And then for De Bruyne, he also contributed to 1 assist, and Haaland also scored in that match, although Haaland did not play it so well as per the other two. In terms of Nick Pope and Trippier, Newcastle did pretty well in the 5-1 win against Brentford. With Trippier also getting an assist too. I think the both of them should have gotten a clean sheet if not for that controversial decisions to award the penalty to Brentford. So I watched the penalty decision and then kind of disagree with the ref giving a penalty. In that kind of situation, the ball was knocked down and it hits Dan Burns' arm at close range. I think he wasn't even looking, and his back, it was kind of like facing the ball. So there's nothing he can do in that kind of situation. So for ref to actually get that kind of penalty, it's really disappointing for me because if not because of that penalty, Trippier and Pope would both have a clean sheet points. In my midfield, Maddison also blanks and get 1 point, which doesn't come as a surprise for me because Bournemouth defense has been very good for the past few game weeks ever since they sacked Scott Parker. And then you have Zaha and Martinelli. Zaha got an assist despite a poor first half performance from Crystal Palace, but Crystal Palace did bounce back in the second half and show their dominance in the game. And then you have Martinelli, which before the game I did suspect is gonna cause problems. This guy is gonna cause problems for both Liverpool and Trent. I'm just not expecting that kind of performance from him. He's got 1 goal and 1 assist and looked really sharp in the game. And then for Andreas, he's the unexpected player to get his first goal of the season as he comes to my team to replace an injured Mitrovic. And finally, we have Solanke, who assists twice against Leicester. What a performance from Solanke. Oh my god. Finally, we have been waiting for like a few weeks now for Solanke to get the returns, and finally he got one. Not 1 but 2 assists against Leicester. And in my bench, I have Ward, Mitrovic, Sufel and Nico Williams. Ward is as poor as usual. Mitrovic is injured and did not feature in the game. And both Sufel and Nico Williams are also subjected to minute risk. Kofel did not start the game and Nico Williams came in late into the game. So that basically sums up my Game Week 10 results. So for Game Week 11, there are some concerns in my bench right now because 2 of my players are no longer the first choice player in the team. These 2 players are Sufel and Nico Williams, and we still don't have a definitive answer as to when Mitrovic is going to come back into the team. But I think Mitrovic will definitely go straight back into the first team when he is fit and ready. The bigger problem I think is Sufel and Nico Williams because I need them to start Game Week 12 for me, as I have only 4 players. I have 4 players from Man City and Arsenal who won't be playing in Game Week 12, and I need somebody to replace them in Game Week 12. So if they are not starting for me, I probably have to use my free transfer to bring in players to replace them so that I will have enough players to play Game Week 12. Elsewhere, we also got news that James has suffered a knock during the Champions League game, and we'll talk a little about that too. So without further ado, let's start with my Game Week 11 team selection. First up, we have Danny Ward in goal. I know Ward has been terrible, but Crystal Palace attack is poor in the first half against Leeds. So this kind of gives me a little bit of hope that Ward may somehow get a clean sheet here. And Newcastle is also playing against Manchester United away from home. So I think Pope is not a good choice in this game week because history does suggest that Newcastle is going to concede at least 2 to 4 goals in this particular fixture. So Man U has no problem scoring in the last few game weeks. So I actually expect Newcastle to concede a few goals against Manchester United. Next up in defense, we have Reece James. Now Porter has explained the reasons why he left out James was due to a dead leg that James actually suffered before the game. So if James is fit, I expect him to come straight back into the squad. The only problem is James has now picked up a knock and limp off during the Champions League match against AC Milan. Porter did not say how bad the injury was, but he did mention he still needs the next 48 hours to assess his condition. So there's still chance for James to start the match against Aston Villa. And also past few game week does suggest that Aston Villa seems to have problems scoring goals. So you kind of see that James, if he starts, he has the ability to get a clean sheet, a high possibility to get a clean sheet. And then in terms of Aston Villa, average goals scored per match is around 0.8. So if James does start, for me, he has a really high chance to get a clean sheet. So I will just wait and hold James first until I got further information on his condition. My next player is Cancelo. He plays Liverpool and it's an away game, but it doesn't matter. Liverpool has been poor in defense, which makes them look like an average team right now. In past few game weeks, we saw Cancelo drift further up the pitch, putting in crosses and shots. Liverpool has been conceding goals on their right side, and in the last match, we saw how Martinelli from Arsenal gave them a hard time on the left side. And guess what? Cancelo is also playing on the left. Of course, right now Trent is injured and you can argue that Joe Gomez could be better at defending than Trent, but Joe Gomez is not really an attacking wingback, so I don't expect him to contribute much to Liverpool attack. So in terms of Liverpool attacking midfielder and striker, we see that Luis Diaz is also injured, so potentially actually they lost 2 of their most attacking players in their team, which is Trent and Luis Diaz. So maybe Cancelo is going to get some clean sheet points in this match too. The next player in defense is Trippier. Now we know Trippier is playing against Manchester United and it looks like Newcastle is going to concede a few goals based on past record of this fixture. But he's also taking free kicks, he's also taking corners, so there's still chances of him getting some attacking returns, although the chances I feel personally is not that much. But it's very difficult for me not to pick him given that my bench was I have Williams and Sufal in my bench, so it's very difficult for me to look elsewhere to pick someone else. So I'm just gonna stick with him in this game week. And in the midfield we have James Maddison. When you look at Leicester and Maddison, goals is not a problem for this team. They've scored in 8 matches out of 9 actually. Next game is a home game against Crystal Palace, where Crystal Palace has been conceding 7 matches out of 8. So you expect Leicester here to get some attacking returns, and Maddison being the focal point of this team, he's gonna do well in this game. Next up, we have Kevin De Bruyne. Kevin De Bruyne, I think it's no secret that De Bruyne is a quality player. He got 6 assists in the past 4 games. The only problem is that he's playing slightly deeper and not scoring goals because most of the goal scoring now is done by Haaland and Foden. Initially, I was thinking of transferring out De Bruyne for Foden because goals are worth more than assists in midfield, and there are some more opportunities for Foden to get an attacking return because he's playing in such an advanced position now. I have 2 minute race player in Sufal and Nico Williams, and I have to think of ways to replace these 2. So I have to have players to cover my Man City and Arsenal players in game week 12. So the priority has to be on these 2 players rather than swapping De Bruyne for Foden. And in my next pick, we have Martinelli. Arsenal is playing Leeds, which has been conceding so many big chances so far in this season. Leeds form dropped a little bit In fact, drop off quite a bit after that impressive win against Chelsea. Now they're just playing an informed Arsenal who has an informed player called Martinelli. It's really hard to predict against this Arsenal team, and Martinelli will definitely start for me, and I think he would do really well against this underperforming Leeds team. And last in my midfield, we have Zaha. Zaha is going to start his good run of fixture. Leicester's, Wolves, Everton, Southampton, West Ham and Forest. Among all this fixture, only West Ham looks really bad. The rest are amazing fixture for Zaha to get some attacking returns. Up first in the fixture, we have Leicester, who has been conceding goals after goals after goals. So Zaha is also on that penalty duties. With such poor defense from Leicester, they may also concede penalties too. So I expect Zaha to do quite well in this game. My first pick in forward is Mitrovic. Now, in terms of Mitrovic, as of now, we still doesn't know whether Mitrovic is going to start for game week 11. But if he is fit, he's going to come straight back into my team. Otherwise, we probably have Andrews to cover for him. I'm not excited even if he start against Bournemouth, because Bournemouth's defense looks pretty good for the past few game weeks. So if Mitrovic is not in 100% condition, I'm not sure what kind of points he will even get, even if he starts. But we also don't have a strong reason to switch him out yet, because I don't think there's much option here apart from maybe Darwin Núñez, or maybe some. I would say only Darwin Núñez has caught my attention, but the rest of the striker, maybe Ivan Toney. Even Ivan Toney fixture looks average at decent. So I think perhaps Mitrovic is going to stay in my team until we have a clear idea on his condition. Up next, we have Solanke. Solanke is facing against Fulham, and Fulham has been poor defensively so far this season. They have been conceding a lot of goals, so there's a good chance for Solanke to get returns here. And lastly, in my forward, we have Haaland. And Haaland, for now, I would definitely 100% captain him this game week. There are a few positive things to look at here. Number one, Haaland did not play in the Champions League game in midweek, and he's well rested and ready to go. Number two, Liverpool are playing poorly defensively and are conceding a ton of goals. So I expect if they concede a few goals, partially is going to go to Haaland. And number three, Arsenal scored 3 goals against Liverpool, and if Arsenal can do this kind of damage to Liverpool, just imagine what Man City can do to Liverpool. And lastly, for my bench, we have Pope, Andreas, Nico Williams and Sufal. Now in terms of my bench, the reason why I bench Pope is because he's playing Manchester United. Now past record in this fixtures does suggest that Newcastle is going to concede a few goals. We also got Andreas to cover for Mitrovic in case he did not start. And Nico Williams and Sufal are both minute risk players and they may not start anyway. Now when it comes to transfer, we have to consider a few factors. There's a blank game week 12 for both Man City and Arsenal players. I have 4 players: Cancelo, De Bruyne, Haaland and Martinelli. I would have done a swap from a De Bruyne to let's say Foden, and possibly look to upgrade Andreas to Saka. But because I have 2 minute risk players, which is Nico Williams and Sufal, I need some cover for my bench in case both Reece James and Mitrovic doesn't start for me. And right now, my only reliable bench option in my bench, the only reliable option is Andrews, and Nico Williams may get some minutes sparingly, but his fixture is going to get harder because Forest are going to play Brighton, Liverpool and Arsenal in 3 of the next 4 game weeks. And Sufal is just not going to start for West Ham anytime soon. So it's not just game week 12, but I'm also looking at the long-term plan until game week 16 when the World Cup starts. So initially I was thinking of doing 2 transfer, and then came the news that James is also slightly injured from the Champions League game. So I changed my plan, and this week I'm going to do 1 transfer only and keep the other one first. And in the worst case scenario, we may have both James and Mitrovic out for for future game weeks. So I want to have the options to do 2 transfer at once before game week 12 in case I need this option. I think no matter what I do, it seems inevitable that some position in my team is going to blank in game week 12, so we just have to do what we can right now. So this week I'm transferring Sufal to Johnny from Oof. My first priority will be Sufal over Nico Williams because Nico Williams still gets some minutes and he's not completely phased out of the team yet. And then in terms of Oof fixture, we look at Johnny from Oof. In terms of his fixture, it looks pretty good for the next few game week, starting with Forest as their next opponent. They got 4 home games out of the remaining 6 fixture until the World Cup starts. So another thing to take note is that the Oof defense is actually pretty good. Before Nathan Collins got his red card against Man City. From game week 1 to 6, when Collins is playing, Wolves only concede 3 goals in 6 matches. That is a ridiculous low amount over there. And now Collins is still suspended and will not play against Forest, but he will be back to play against Crystal Palace in game week 12. So Wolves have a higher chance to get clean sheets for future game weeks too. Now basically for Wolves players, I'm also looking at Max Kilman, Aït-Nouri and Johnny. I think among these 3, Kilman and Johnny looks more set for minutes than Aït-Nouri, and I also consider the position that play in the Wolf team. Kilman plays as a central defender, but both Aït-Nouri and Johnny has more freedom to venture up the field to put in crosses and shots. So I think it's either going to be Aït-Nouri or Johnny, but I pick Johnny because he seems to be more near on minutes. So for the captain armband, I'm putting it on Haaland and vice captain on Martinelli. I think both are great options and both are on form and they are both playing great fixture, but I think Haaland slightly aged a little bit further because he's playing a wounded Liverpool side and he's rested for a Champions League game and he's ready to go and conquer game week 11. So this is my team selection for game week 11. If you like my video, please consider giving me a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel for future FPL content. Do take note that the transfer deadline for game week 11 is slightly earlier, which is on Friday evening. And lastly, I wish you all the best for game week 11 and I will see you in the next game week.